Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mio on MMA podcast, where we are talking about the recent Apex offering of Gamrot versus Salkilld. And we're also talking about the event coming down in Philadelphia this weekend, UFC 330? Question mark? Yeah, 330. Makhachev versus Machado Garry is on deck, and let's clear out the old and then move into the new. Quillan Salkilld versus Gamrot. This was a phenomenal fight. Not a I'm gonna watch it all timer. But Quillan Salkilld made a statement here. Not only did he hurt Gamrot, which in itself, not really a big deal. But what he did do is largely out-wrestle him, largely out-scramble him, largely out-grapple him. Something that, realistically speaking, nobody really does. Not like nobody, because Charles Oliveira, hello. And Beneil Dariush as well. But not really anybody else. This is something Arman Tsarukyan couldn't do. This is something Esteban Ribovics couldn't do. Ludovic Klein. Rafael Dos Anjos, admittedly as an old man. Jalin Turner, who we'll talk about later. Carlos Diego Ferreira. These are all people that have failed to do that particular thing and are really, really good fighters. Quillan Salkilld went out there and did the deed. Now, does this train him as a future champion, or I have no questions left whatsoever? No. Something I would like to see from Quillan Salkilld is him fight somebody of relatively similar height to him, because so far that's not really been the case. There are questions about what he does with that kind of range parity, because everyone he's fought has either been somebody who, let's just be honest, is not necessarily a particularly good fighter, or past their best in the case of Beneil Dariush, Jamie Malarkey, Nasrat Haqparast. Haqparast, I guess, would be the best of the examples, but even that fight was one where he was not doing particularly well prior to the knockout. And then Ashbooz, Ashel Jubilee. So there is a question here of what would a fight between him and Justin Gaethje be like? What would a fight between him and basically anyone else near the top of the 155 rankings that fancies themselves a striker? What would a fight with Dan Hooker look like, for example? What would a fight with even a Paddy Pimblett or Charles Oliveira, who are not necessarily good range strikers, but obviously are people that have a size, a Max Holloway, etc. And the bright side is, almost certainly that's what we're going to get next, because I can't think of anything else you would do with him, except for, I guess, if you're really, really, really determined to keep Arman Tsarukyan away from the title picture, and he beats Mauricio Hufi. I guess that's on the table. That's a possibility. Or a fight with Mauricio Hufi, which, again, that would be phenomenal. Or Renato Moicano, even. These are all people that would be intriguing in that regard. But he went out there and he beat the brakes off of Gamrot and made a statement. Could not have done better, because he didn't avoid Gamrot's game. He beat Gamrot at Gamrot's game and got a rear naked choke submission over Gamrot. That is phenomenal. That puts him in Charles Oliveira company. That's great. So questions are still there, obviously. The questions that were going to be there regardless. And dude is, I guess what I come out of this is that one of my concerns about Salkilld was that he was really willing to wrestle even when it didn't make a lot of sense against some of his prior opponents. Thinking particularly of the Yanal Ashbooz fight, for example. A fight that he was winning at range very, very easily, but kept doing the wrestling stuff. And even to a certain extent, the Beneil Dariush fight was an example of that, where it's okay, dude, the wrestling, you just want to avoid it. You want to avoid it. And Dariush is initiating and all that shit. But I feel like you could break free of this and make a bigger, make a smarter play. And he didn't. So to see him go out there and again, absolutely just destroy one of the best grapplers in the division in Gamrot means that while I still question whether he would, I question whether he would wrestle with, for example, a Charles Oliveira or a Paddy Pimblett, despite it being a bad idea, or at least the worst, most dangerous idea. I now have a higher degree of hope that he could actually pull it off. And honestly, the list of people that him wrestling with actually is a problem has really gotten a lot less, because it's basically those two guys I mentioned right now. I'm not worried about him wrestling with Justin Gaethje. I wasn't before. But I'm not worried about him wrestling with Ilia Topuria or Arman Tsarukyan or Benoit Saint Denis or Renato Moicano. These are all people that I now would honestly just think he would be able to handle that bad instinct wouldn't land him in trouble. Now, Probably would still beat Topuria to beat him because Topuria is more than just a wrestler. But it is a phenomenal performance. It is a great performance. And it saved a card that was otherwise kind of lame because the co-main event was Carlos Diego Ferreira versus Billy Quarantillo, which is a fight of just like two old guys. Ferreira probably on some steroids, probably on some supplementation because, frankly, he landed 116 significant strikes in this fight. He threw 236 significant strikes. He threw 246 strikes total, which is insane, including 74 in the third round, which is a pace that he has never really had before. So, question mark, question mark, question mark. UFC doing drug testing. There you go. But, yeah, Billy Kuya didn't really have anything for him. The only round that was close was the third round, which I debated scoring for Quarantillo. What did I do live? Did I score for him live? Pulling up my notes here. Yeah, I gave it to him live, but like if you gave that round to CDF, I don't have a problem. He probably still landed the better strikes, the harder shots. It's just I gave Billy Quarantillo the edge for the volume edge, and the fact that Carlos Diego Ferreira was able to get in range on Ferreira and like do some things, but like he couldn't take him down. He couldn't get much done in the clinch. He couldn't really get the footwork going. He got absolutely beaten up for 2 rounds. He had no defensive answers for CDF, which is not surprising. I guess the only positive I can take for this for Quarantillo, who is a fighter I do like, is that at 155 his durability held up. That's about it. That's honestly all I've got. He otherwise just got beat up. And it's probably time to hang him up. But he probably won't because, let's be honest, we're talking about hanging it up. Yadier Del Val killed Darren Elkins, and I would like to thank the referee, whose name I did not mention here, Kerry Hatley, for just stopping that fight. We don't need to see Darren Elkins take more than 5 like killer shots and fall down. Does this fight mean anything for Del Val? Not really. He beat a guy who is old and should be beaten by everybody. He ran over him. He stomped him. I guess he didn't go long. I guess that's the only bright side. But he has now beaten a guy who was almost certainly throwing a fight, a guy who shouldn't have been fighting, and lost a fight that he may or may not have thrown. I still haven't seen the whole evidence for the throw thing. Like I watched the Jordan Leavitt versus Del Val fight again, and it's not a good look, but I don't get I don't understand the whole through it thing. If anyone's got something, link please. If there was like some kind of conspiracy theory that I'm just not aware of, but like it's not impressive. It doesn't build anything up. And like I said in the prediction video /pod, I get having Darren Elkins fight in the UFC and not letting him go and fight elsewhere for even less money because he would do it. But there is a point where the Athletic Commission should step in and stop this. Or his corner, the people around him, which we're going to talk about with the Ty Miller-Billy Ray Goff fight later. Alexia Thainara versus Amanda Lemos was not a great fight, but Thainara went out there, put a pace on, which she does, tried to wrestle. Didn't have a lot of success with the wrestling, 2 for 6 on takedowns. Only a little bit of top control. But yeah, she out-grappled Lemos when she could. She outworked Lemos pretty much the entire fight. The third round, I think, was the only round that had any real discussion about giving it for Lemos. Lemos is, and even then, probably not. It also, like, statistically speaking, she landed 81-20 in the third round. Pardon me, it's a second round. I got it wrong. It was the second round. But even in the second round, she got outlanded 24-20 in significant strikes, 49-25 overall. So even the second round easily could go to Thainara. 2 judges did give a round to Lemos. I assume it was the second round. But, yeah. Lemos is still going to be someone hard to just run over because she's still very strong. She still has enough power to make you respect her, and she is still a solid grappler. That's kind of all it is. There's not really a surprise to her at this point. There's not really an ability to make the fight that she wants happen. She could still win some fights. She's on a 3-fight losing skid, but I'm kind of done with it. I'm kind of not really all that interested in it. I'm trying to think of like an example of a fighter of yesteryear that this kind of reminds me of, and not coming up with a great one. Maybe like Rashad Evans back in the day, when like Rashad Evans started to like not have the physical gifts that he used to have, getting a little bit old, and like he wasn't getting killed, he wasn't getting run over, he wasn't looking sad. It's just he was looking uncompetitive and uninteresting. Speaking of uncompetitive and uninteresting, Ty Miller versus Billy Ray Goff. Round 1 is Billy Ray Goff keeping it close, crowding him, and doing his homework. And then by the end of the round, he's getting his ass kicked. Miller has figured out how to keep the range. Goff has gassed himself trying to fight a game that is not his. And as a result, he's just getting teed off on. He's getting beat up. And in the second round, he is getting beat up so bad. 116-9 are the strikes landed numbers. Got beat to hell. Got knocked down. Got, 10-8 round. 10-7 round, frankly, is on the table. Miller is beating this man up. Goff goes back to the corner, and Goff is talking with his corner, and he's not exactly up for it. He's not exactly doing the thing, and his corner is giving him zero advice. Their advice is like circle away and do nothing. Like just try to survive, essentially. Throw the towel in. If your argument is that your fighter should avoid the fight and just try to get it to the judges' scorecards, we don't need the fight. We don't need it. If it was like 1 round to 1 round or 2 rounds up and it's like you're like hurt or something, like there are fights I can think of in the history of the UFC where someone has picked up an injury in say round 2 and they've won round 1 and round 2, or at least there's a reasonable expectation that they have, and they go back out there. It's like, okay, you're hurt. You need to avoid the fight. You need to just circle away, just survive, win 29-28 on the cards. I can understand that. There was none of that here. You were down 2 rounds to nothing. You had no idea of how to win. You had no advice for Goff on how to actually bring the fight to him. Throw the towel in. It's over. Corner stoppage. Perfect example. And I understand there's a lot of things that discourage that. The UFC discourages that. The fighters discourage that. The fans discourage that. The fighters themselves will probably fire you. But that is what should be done. There was no need for Billy Ray Goff to come out and take more damage. And fortunately, the referee, Jason Herzog, agreed because as soon as Miller started putting on him in the third round, he stopped the fight. So that's good. Is there a lot of great things for Ty Miller coming out of this? It's a tough one because like Miller has obvious promise. He has talented hands. He has a long, rangy frame, and you can't teach that. But I do wonder still about his footwork. Like there are just things that he has to develop that we often see not get developed in the UFC. Like he has to figure out how to stay at range. He has to figure out how to find his range early. He has to figure out his footwork. He has to figure out ways to break clinches. And these are all things that there just isn't a guarantee that he's going to fix, I guess. If he does, he's very, very scary. He'd be a monster. So it's on the table. It's just we're at the point where the things he has to fix are all nuanced things that good coaching is required for. And that's never a guarantee in MMA. And his gym doesn't really have a history of, like, actually doing those things. Steven Asplund versus Guillermo Pat. This was a fun fight. Asplund went out there. He knocked him down in the first round, ended up on top of him, dropped down some elbows. Refused that in the second round. The rare round where actually both guys got dropped, which was kind of surprising. I gave it to Guillermo Pat. I thought he landed the better shots down the stretch. He landed more significant strikes. Was outlanded only by 3 strikes in total strikes by Asplund in that round. It was a good round. It was the round in which Guillermo Pat actually managed to fight like Guillermo Pat, because dude is super fast, super precise, super talented as a striker. It's just nothing about him keeps the range. Nothing about him puts on a pace. Nothing about him. So many things that need to be developed about Guillermo Kong Pat. And I wish he would, because it would be really, really fun. But he's a 32-year-old guy. I mean, he's got time, I guess. It is heavyweight, but it is what it is. Asplund takes the third round in my books. Just volume. Doing the Steven Asplund thing, which is talk a really good game, be very entertaining on the mic, be willing to throw down, and have a surprising amount of cardio for heavyweight, while also definitely having that heavyweight durability. That is the long and short of it, I suppose. So good job by Steven Asplund. Every time he wins, I'm going to be very happy because it's a fun time, but there is a hard cap on him, and that's just kind of all I'm going to say about that. DR Ngojai versus Bruno Lopez was a fight that I was happy that Ngojai won, because I like him. I enjoy him. I think he's a very interesting fighter, if one that I don't trust to develop necessarily. But a lot of people were like, this is kind of like a prove-it fight for him, and I just don't really agree. I thought Bruno Lopez fought very badly. You have a fighter that is allergic to chaos, allergic to a messy fight, and you're like, okay, let's do 1-2 strike exchanges. And Njokuani is comfortable doing that fight. He's comfortable doing that. You're not throwing him off. You're not upsetting the textbook. And if it's a textbook fight, Njokuani is going to win it. So good for Njokuani to get the win. Bruno Lopez is probably done because that's 3 straight stoppage losses, I think. Even if it is to Justin Jacoby and Navajo Sterling and now Njokuani. I could see this being the end for him, particularly if he doesn't have another fight on contract. So there is that. Jose Montana defeated Louis Sutherland in the saddest display of heavyweight grappling of all time. Please get Louis Sutherland out of the UFC. It is bad. And he tapped out when the choke wasn't even being applied. Don't get me wrong, you were in a bad spot. You had a guy who knows how to do jiu-jitsu on your back. It was coming. I'm not expecting you to get out of that. I'm not expecting you to survive that. But goddamn, man, at least have the choke locked in when you tap. He wanted out of there. He doesn't like to grapple, and the problem is that he initiated the grappling. Frustrating. Manuel Souza versus Richie Miranda was just the classic physical ceiling thing. I picked Miranda because I don't like Souza's style. I still don't like Souza's style. It's fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but it's not smart. It's not good. Like, he clinches at wrong times. He initiates wrestling at wrong times. He gets out of it because he's a physical freak and has all the power and the strength and the explosiveness in the world. He has moments where he needs to recharge his cardio. And I thought that against all hope that the much more limited Richie Miranda would be able to pressure him. And when he was on the front foot, it worked. But he could not convince himself to keep that pressure on, and he lost to Manuel Souza pretty cleanly. I thought the first round was questionable. I gave it to Miranda. Out of curiosity, what were the numbers and what was the... Yeah, Miranda, I think, won the first round pretty clearly. He had 2 minutes and 27 seconds on top. Like, he was losing the stand-up because he was getting hit hard, and that's going to obviously leave an impression. But, like, he won that when he got on the front foot and managed to implement his wrestling. Miles Johns knocked out Johnny Vasquez. I hope Vasquez gets another shot in the UFC because he's taken 2 short-notice fights on, 4 days' notice combined. But he's not good. Juliana Miller, speaking of not good, beat Ravenna Oliveira in a fight that didn't really do anything for me. Don't get me wrong. Miller is getting better. And against all hope, Sick Jitsu seems to be turning her into a better fighter, which is weird because Sick Jitsu... Okay, hang on. I'm going to try this. I promised somebody that I would try to be nice to Sick Jitsu, so hang on. Channeling the good vibes. Okay. Sick Jitsu seems to have a really, really solid strength and conditioning program because they are, generally speaking, making people better athletes than they were. And they also have very good weight cutting capacity. They will teach you some very basic jiu-jitsu. They will teach you some basic striking. And it would be a perfectly fine option to do that. And I am fine with it. That being said, they are not a gym that will actually develop a nuanced fighter with good planning. That is my opinion. Not plan. And they have some dumb ideas because they're the body shots don't hurt, leg kicks don't hurt gym as well. So I'm not gonna like them, but if you're in the Pacific Northwest, fine. They will build you into a reasonable fighter. And this just didn't matter because Ravenna Oliveira is not actually a fighter. She has the physical tools to be a good fighter. She is, however, not a good fighter. So submitting her in the second round just does not actually mean much. Now, for what does mean something, Carol Foro versus Gigi Canuto. Shout out to both ladies. They brought it. When Canuto was able to get on the front foot, she was able to actually do some pretty good work. She had a really, really tight armbar in there at one point that almost had the end of the fight. That was in the second round. And did a phenomenal job. But what it was is that Canuto does not really move her head very well. Canuto does not really have a nuanced striking game. It's a very bully-esque striking game. So when put in there against somebody like Foro, who can actually just crack her, there's not really a lot of respect to be gained. And Foro picked up the pace and did her thing. Like, she landed 82 strikes in round 3. Do you have any idea how many strawweights on the roster have not landed 82 strikes in a fight? That's insane. So Carol Foro is can't miss viewing. Now, I will say she did lose a round where she basically got taken down, held down, out-grappled. So, Carol Foro, work needs to be done. You need to go out there and work on getting up, scrambling, etc. So, it's not all great. The baseline takedown defense, I think, is not terrible, but the urgency of getting up is something that needs to be worked on. And for Canuto, unfortunately, it's just a matter of getting seasoning. She needs some training partners that are not going to be bullied by her. And the problem is that she may have to go to another gym to get those because, well, it hasn't happened yet. And that is a bit of a problem. That being said, a bright future for both of these ladies who are, particularly Canuto. Canuto is only 23. Canuto has a lot to be excited about moving forward. I am more than on that. We'll put it that way. That was the fight card. So it opened up really good. It ended really good. The middle was soggy. We'll put it that way. Soggy with a couple of good fights. All right, let's get into UFC 330 and the usual spiel here. Do not bet what you cannot lose on MMA. It is a volatile, chaotic sport and not a pathway to financial freedom. I don't think betting on any sport, honestly, realistically actually is. Unless you have a ridiculous amount of capital that you can afford to lose and turn into something. But MMA is particularly not that sport. I don't think this is going to be the longest one in the world here because honestly, for a quote pay-per-view or whatever it is what we're terming these now, this fight card it's impactful, but it lacks a lot of particular interest. Like, we have 2 title fights. Great, phenomenal. But otherwise, like, we have Jalin Turner versus Fernandes, which is a battle that's going to be fun, but, like, these 2 guys are not going anywhere. Mansour Abdul-Malik has got himself a showcase fight. Spoiler on who I'm picking there. Edson Barboza is an old man. Njokuani and Alvarez. See Turner Fernandes, basically. Like, it's the welterweight version of that fight. Charles Johnson against a newcomer, late nose replacement. Dante Johnson versus Eric McCoy is a fight between 2 guys that it wouldn't surprise me if they're not here in like a year. Vicente Luque versus Tresean Gore is an old man fight. Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando is a fight between 2 guys who may not be here in a year. Neil Magny versus Ramiz Brahima. I've become like slightly interested in Brahima, but like it is what it is. And then Oralby and Wells is the like biggest betting underdog / favorite on the card. So like there's not a particular large amount of interesting stuff here, but let's kick it in. Makhachev, Ian Garry. This is the most interesting fight on the fight card because Ian Garry tends to have a good game plan for every opponent that he fights. Hate him for whatever reason you want. I find him cringe, whatever. He is a smart game planning fighter. Not necessarily the most exciting fighter in the world, but he is a smart fighter, and he has an awkward frame to deal with. He is 6'3". He has a 74.5-inch reach. It is welterweight. That is very unique and hard to deal with. So I'm intrigued to see how he handles Islam Makhachev. And Makhachev's mix of like actually pretty technically sound striking, and of course the Dagestani special, the absolute crushing control-based grappling that they do have that is also very, very punishing and very opportunistic with submissions and so on. There is a reason that Makhachev is one of the greatest fighters on the planet right now and made Jack Della Maddalena look absolutely helpless against him in their fight. Now, Jack Della had that really bad fight afterwards, and we haven't seen him come around, and it's a bit of a weird one. The welterweight title has been in a bit of a weird spot, where like you had Kamaru Usman, dominant champion, great, probably second best champion of all time, behind George St. Pierre, maybe third best, Matt Hughes, some respect for Matt Hughes, but who lost his belt to Leon Edwards in a moment of genius for Edwards, and a moment where Edwards finally put it together, but then after that just seems to have lost all interest in being a top-end fighter, even his fight with Colby Covington being, like, absolutely garbage. And then you had Bilal Muhammad win the fight, or win the belt, which, of course, was because Leon seemed just absolutely flat. And then Jack Della beats an unathletic, one of the least physically imposing welterweight champions of all time, in Bilal Muhammad and then gets ragdolled by Islam Makhachev. So we're in a dark place. And that means this is going to be interesting because Makhachev is still not all that proven at 170. He beat JDM for the belt, but that's all we have. So is Ian Garry's height, reach, size, competent clinch wrestling, generally smart approaches to game plan, punishing him coming into the pocket, probably, I would imagine. Try to keep it at range, punish him coming into the pocket, punish him when he goes for shots on takedowns, knees up the middle maybe. All these kind of ideas. I'm interested to see how that plays out. But at the end of the day, I suspect Islam Makhachev will get takedowns and will grapple fuck Ian Machado Garry. So I've got Makhachev by decision. He is the favorite, minus 317 to minus 350, plus 250 to plus 300 on Ian Machado Garry. Respectful, bettable either way, and we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping to be wrong. I'm hoping that there's something very, very interesting that Machado Garry comes up with and applies to this fight, and that we get a good fight, because I'm not really all that hopeful for the rest of the card. Moving on down to the co-main event, Mackenzie Dern versus Jillian Robertson. You have to go with Dern here. Robertson is someone who does not strike well. She is a grappler. She is a persistent pain-in-the-butt wrestler. This has historically not been the way to beat Mackenzie Dern. Everyone who has beaten Dern has had a significant striking advantage over her that Robertson just does not have. She doesn't have the power or the technicality of Amanda Lemos, which is weird because we just said Lemos was washed, but at the time they fought, she was not. She does not have the power, the explosiveness of Jessica Andrade. She does not have the frame or the technical striking of Yan Janan. She does not have the striking quality and the tenacity of Marina Rodriguez. She does not have Amanda Hebosh's game even, although I guess Hebosh is the example of somebody who did take Dern down, but realistically was only on the ground with her for 2 minutes of the fight. Outstruck her again. So the key to beating Dern has always been the striking game, to be able to punish her on the feet, because Dern is a inconsistent striker who sometimes shows great developments that just go away in the next fight, and realistically is reliant on the fact that she is actually quite big for strawweight. She's got to be one of the biggest strawweights on the roster, and she is angry. When she fights angry and aggressive, it makes up for a lot of lacking talent. Not talent, technicality. There you go. Because she's an immensely talented grappler. And that's the thing is, what does Robertson do to win this fight? She's probably the better wrestler of the two, but keeping it standing is not an option. She's going to take her down and try to find some stuff, but, she had a hard time imposing her game on Tabitha Ricci on the ground. What are you going to do with Mackenzie Dern? It just isn't there. And I don't really know what to say. Robertson has had a great run here, beating Amanda Lemos, beating Marina Rodriguez, both people who have beaten Mackenzie Dern, beating Luana Pinheiro, who's not a bad fighter, beating Michelle Waterson Gomez, beating Poliana Viana. This move down to 115 has been great for her outside of that loss to Ricci, basically. But how do you win when your only way of winning, your historical only way of getting there, is to go through Dern's ground game? I'll laugh, I'll enjoy it if she wins it, but I just can't picture it in my head. I'm here for a Canadian champion, I'm here for that, and I generally don't like Mackenzie Dern as a fighter, because I do not like people who take steps forward and have all the coaching to take those steps forward. Jason Perillo is a great coach, and then just reverts. It's frustrating to me. And as a result of all that, I would love to see her lose. But Robertson just doesn't have the right style, doesn't have the really right game plan to really get that done. I'm picking Dern by submission just because it's a 5-round fight. I don't think you can go continuously to the ground with Dern for 5 rounds and not get subbed. But I am cheering for Robertson. I am here for it. I've got the pom-poms out. And it's a surprisable bettable line here, because it's minus 186 to minus 230 on Dern and plus 173 to plus 178 on Robertson. So both of those are bettable lines. Jalin Turner versus Kauê Fernandes. This is a banger. This is a fun fight. This is going to be violent. I'm looking forward to it. But when it comes down to the complexity of it, The answer is Fernandes has historically beaten people that he has a massive physical advantage of, or a random win over Guram Kutateladze during Kutateladze's like mental breakdown and failure to do anything of like smartness and intelligence in a fight. So you have to go with Turner because Turner is a huge dude. He's 6'3" lightweight. He's got the height and reach of Ian Machado Garry. He's got a longer reach than Ian Machado Garry, who is fighting for the title a weight class up. That's what we're talking about here. He's got the power. He's got the dynamic submission threat as well. So, like, it's not like just wrestling him is a particularly good idea. Mateusz Gamrot made that happen, but, like, barely won that fight. And, yeah, it's just what it comes down to. Like, it's not that I think Fernandes is a bad fighter. He's got fast hands. He's got good low kicks. He's got powerful kicks in general. He's explosive. He's dynamic. The technique is actually pretty solid. It's just Turner is a bit of a monster when he puts his mind to it and doesn't have like terrible grappling decisions to make. So there you go. There is the fact that Turner has lost some fights that through being just honestly kind of dumb. His loss to Gamrot in some ways was that. His loss to Moicano definitively was. But I know beating Edson Barboza in 2025 doesn't actually mean much, but it's what it is. I mean, there's a submission there, I guess. He fell into a sub against Ignacio Bahamondes, so, like, there are opportunities. The defense is bad. I understand why this is a really close betting line as a result. Minus 144 to minus 170 on Turner, plus 125 to plus 138 on Fernandes. It's just, we have two guys who historically win fights because of physical gifts and athleticism. And Turner is the better athlete. He's the more physical fighter. He's a guy that I think you actually have to have like a really crafty game to beat, and I don't think Fernandes has that. But I'm here for it to be a fun fight. It's just, you know, I feel like I have to. There's a 6-inch height disadvantage here. Mansour Abdul Malik versus Dustin Stolfus. The betting odds are huge here, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Abdul Malik is coming off of a loss to Yusri Belgari. He did have that struggle against Cody Brundrich, but he is still the better wrestler, the more athletic fighter, the better striker. Probably a slightly worse grappler than Stolfus, but Stolfus is not a UFC level guy, and the fact that he's hung around as long as he has is moderately amazing because this guy got into the UFC because Joe Pyfer hurt himself on Contender Series, lost 3 fights in a row to Kyle Daukaus, Rodolfo Vieira, and Gerald Mearshart. Beat Dwight Grant, who was too small for middleweight. Lost to Abus Magomedov in comedic fashion. And it's like, this guy's 1-4. He's done. He's done in the UFC. Somehow ends up coming back and beating Punahele Soriano, which still doesn't make any sense. And then lost to Bruno Ferreira, beats Marc-Andre Barrio, who's just, let's be honest, kind of done at this point. And then loses to Ruzi Boev and Kelvin Gastelum. Gastelum, who's done. Ruzi Boev, who's, let's be honest, not very good outside of being huge. And yeah, I hope Mansour Abdel Malik wins because Mansour Abdel Malik can be a very good fighter. And I know I said it just recently. The Brundage fight was really ugly. The Belgari loss is a problem. And then he had the Antonio Tricoli fight, and Tricoli is god-awful. And before that, he beat Nick Klein, Dushko Todorovic, and Wes Schultz. Those don't really mean a lot either. But he's got a good gym at his back. He should be developing. He should be becoming better. And I just have to go with that's happening because this guy has a lot of potential. So Abdul Malik by TKO, he's minus 567 to minus 910. That's unbettable. Plus 440 to plus 575 on Stolfus. I would not bet on that either. I would just stay away. Next, we have a lightweight fight, which is a pure age pick between Edson Barboza and Esteban Ribovics. I'm not a big believer in Ribovics. I think he's a perfectly fine, like, action fighter. Don't get me wrong. Like, he fights at a high pace. He's aggressive. He comes forward. His fights with Daniel Zellhuber, Nasrat Haqparast, Els Brenner, Kambo Kirk. These are all very, very fun, like, fights. Go put them on the watch if you haven't watched them in a while. They're fun. They're really fun. But realistically, I would think that prime Edson Barboza would win this fight. It's just that this is 40-year-old Edson Barboza who looked like a shell of himself against Drakkar Klose. I'm going to give Barboza the respect of saying by decision because the only UFC finish that Ribovics has is of Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney is a uniquely finishable fighter. All of his fights will end in finish, so I'm going to say that Barbosa makes it to the final bell. But if there's a wrestling game to be had, it's going to favor Ribovics. If there's an inside striking game, it's going to favor Ribovics. If it's a pocket striking game, it'll probably favor Ribovics, and Ribovics will throw like all the fights. He'll land triple-digit strikes if you let him. Barbosa's really just an outside fighter at this point, and the speed in his game is just not quite there. Barbosa's plus 400 to plus 600, minus 567 to minus 1,000 on Ribovics. I would, again, stay away from a Ribovics line just because that is too stiff. Again, I might put a bet on this fight goes to decision. That's really about it. Chidi Njokuani versus Joel Alvarez. Copy and paste everything about Turner versus Fernandes into this one. It's going to be a banger. It's going to be vicious. It's going to be, probably a really, really fun time. It's a battle between two dudes who are used to being the taller fighter, and they're not. They're both 6'3". They're used to be the longer fighter, which is still the case for Chidi here. He has an 80-inch reach to 77 for Alvarez. That being said, Alvarez's form lately has just been a lot better, and the guys that beat him tend to weaponize wrestling in a very, very big way. If you look at Joel Alvarez's run in the UFC, it's losses to dudes who can wrestle like Yaroslav Amosov, Arman Tsarukyan, and less so Damir Uzmagulov, but Uzmagulov has like a really, really good jab game that Chidi does not have. I'm not going to say the wins look like Chidi because, for one thing, none of them are that big, but like it is guys who are messier strikers, shall we say, the Vicente Luques of the world, the Elsbrenners of the world. By the way, Elsbrenner getting 2 shoutouts in this breakdown. What the heck? He's not even on the card. It's Mark D. Casey to a certain degree as well. This is the type of fight that traditionally speaking Alvarez wins. This is not necessarily the traditional fight that Chidi Njokuani loses, but at the same time, it is a fight that he's lost before against guys like, for example, Michael Oleksiejczuk and Gregory Rodriguez, guys who are not necessarily the cleanest strikers in the world, but they hit hard, they're violent, and they can be aggressive. And then also the Carlos Leal fight. There's also the age aspect here. Chidi is 37 years old. It's hard to pick him. So I'm going to go with Alvarez by TKO. I think I have the odds backwards here. Let me just pull up the Best Fight Odds website real quick, because I have Chidi as the favorite, and I'm pretty sure it's actually Alvarez. Yeah, it is Alvarez, so I've got these backwards. Chidi Njokuani is plus 225 to plus 252. Alvarez minus 290 to minus 333. Alvarez by TKO is my pick. I could also see a sub. He's got a very dangerous front headlock game. Chidi can make bad mistakes on the ground, but you know what? No, I'm gonna say club and sub. So I'm sticking with my gut feel that he catches Chidi with his punches, but I think that he finishes him on the ground. So Alvarez by sub. Charles Johnson versus late notice replacement Eduardo Champolin. Is that how it says? It's Eduardo de Silva dos Santos, which is a hilarious name for MMA fans. I'm disappointed that we're not getting Charles Johnson versus Jose Ochoa. That would have been a really, really fun, really, really violent fight. So please rebook that when possible. But we know Johnson at this point. He's a tall guy. 5'9", 70-inch reach at 125 pounds. He has been around for 15 fights in 4 years. He's fought a lot of dudes, who's who of like the division. And he's come out on top against most of them. He has lost some fights, of course. Ode Osborne, Asap Maxim, Ramazan Temirov, Joshua Van. I don't think he lost to Maxim. I think I have that written down wrong. I think he beat Maxim. But Temirov, Asu Amabayev, and of course Joshua Van, who he may beat, as well as Lonnie Kavanaugh. So there's a lot of good things there. We know what he is. We know what he does. He can fight at a high pace, but he's a slow starter. He's a talented striker. He is a capable wrestler, but he can be out-wrestled. In fact, that's been a hallmark of his losses to Ode Osborne, his loss to Muhammad Makhachev, his loss to Cody Durden, his loss to Rafael Esteban, his loss to Temirov, to a certain degree, his loss to Almabayev, and basically the only exception would be the Alex Perez fight, where he's got kind of nuclear missiled into space. So is Eduardo Champolin any of those guys? Is he a strong wrestler? Not really. He has some wrestling. He's hooked up with Daniel Cormier because of the tough connections, and presumably the wrestling is going to get better and better. So I've got a quizzical dog look on my face right now. But I haven't seen him really control anybody, keep them down, utilize his grappling against anyone particularly good. He is a fast starter. I'll say that. He has a couple of early knockouts, so catching Johnson cold, it's on the table. It's a potential, but I have to pick Charles Johnson. I am going to go with decision. If it doesn't happen, so be it. But I got Charles Johnson. He is minus 125 to minus 143, plus 100 to plus 114 on Champolin. Then we have Dante Johnson versus Eric McConaco. I'm going to go with Eric McConaco to be like the longer fighter. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage, a 4-inch height advantage. He's got pretty reasonable striking. He's got a anti-wrestling game that does work. He's not great at anything. He's not anyone's idea of a phenomenal fighter, but he's got the MMA lab at his back, and he is a decent athlete. If he was younger, he'd be a prospect, but he is 36 years old. Johnson is 5'8", which is a limitation of its own. He is aggressive. He throws hard. He's got athletic gifts, but he is green as all heck. And the reason that he hasn't lost so far is really that the UFC seems interested in trying to build him into something, and has given him Cody Brunrich and Cedric Dumas in the UFC run. So if he beat McConaco here, I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be appalled. I wouldn't be, oh my God, this means something so much. It could just be him going out there and crowding McConaco and making McConaco feel uncomfortable and pushing a pace that McConaco is not really up to responding to and being a bully. But you're going to give me McConaco underdog odds at plus 210 to plus 240 and say minus 275 to minus 300 on Johnson? I'm going to go with McConaco. Johnson is just, he's not good. He's 27 years old, so he can become good. Don't get me wrong. He could have leaps forward, but he's not hooked up with a particularly good gym. I don't expect it. Vicente Luque, Tresean Gore, it's an age pick. I would love to pick Vicente Luque. If he wins, it would be fantastic. It'll be great. He is an exciting fighter. He's one of my all-time action favorites. Good hands, dynamic submission threat from the front headlock position, reasonable underrated wrestler. It's just that at 185 he's tiny, and it's been a long time since I think he's looked good. Like he's coming off a win over Kelvin Gastelum, but that was about Gastelum looking bad. And it's kind of the same thing with his wins over like Michael Chiesa and Tyrone Woodley and RDA. It's more about them having problems than him succeeding. So is Gore amazing? No. Gore is kind of copy and paste Eric McConaco, except being younger by 4 years. He's actually it's alarmingly similar. They're both 6 feet tall with like 77 and 75 inch reach respectively. Anyways, he's just kind of the McConaco number 2 again. He's been getting better. His fight against Azabat was quite nice. He's got power. He's green, but he's got power. He's got athleticism. He's got grappling chops. I have to pick him. I will be here if Luque wins, though, cheering and being super happy. I'll be wrong, but I'll be happy. I'll take Gore by decision because picking him to finish Luque feels wrong. It might happen, but it feels wrong. Plus 104 to minus 110 on Luque, minus 108 to minus 124 on Gore. Rafael Tobias versus Lucas Fernando. I'm just taking the underdog here. I think both of these guys are kind of shit. Tobias lost to DR Ngozi quite badly. Ngozi has kind of rebounded, of course, with that Bruno Lopez win that we talked about earlier. But at the end of the day, he's not a very good striker. He's not a very good wrestler. He's not a very good grappler. He's just kind of big. Like, he's a reasonably sized 205er. That's something Lucas Fernando is not. Lucas Fernando is, realistically speaking, a dude who belongs at 185, where his height at 6'3" and his reach at 81.5 inches can be actually a weapon for him. He's a dynamic striker. He's got all that, but like his grappling decisions are bad. His wrestling decisions are bad. If Tobias just goes out there and puts on any kind of wrestling game on him, it should work. And I'm basically taking Tobias because he's a plus 210 to plus 240 underdog, minus 275 to minus 307 on Fernando. Could Fernando win? Absolutely. He is a dynamic and dangerous striker. It's just that the other end of his game is horrible, and as much as 205 is the land of guys who can't grapple, he is up against somebody who has a basic grappling game. Neil Magny versus Ramis Brahima. I want to take Brahima. I want to take him so bad. And the disclaimer is I've historically always undersold Brahima's abilities because he's always done better than I expected to do. But I am still going to pick Neil Magny because this feels like the fight where Neil Magny just wins. It feels more like the Puno Soriano, Court McGee, and Max Griffin fights, which are all losses for Brahimaj. So Brahimaj, please go out there, prove me wrong. But like, you're against a 39-year-old Neil Magny. Can you not fall in the Neil Magny trap? The problem is I don't trust you not to. So Neil Magny, by decision, 39 years old, life-sucking clinch game. Not even a good range game, but the fact that he's 6'3" and has an 80-inch reach allows him to be a pain in the ass and just someone you don't feel comfortable being at reach with. Even Phil Rowe, who has a similar height and reach, was like, I need to clinch with this guy, and it was a bad idea. So, there you go. Please Brahimaj win, but like, I'm picking Neil Magny, and I'm getting underdog odds at plus 116 to plus 127. Go figure. Or is this another case where I have it wrong? I did it once in my notes, and now I'm paranoid I did it again. Let's see here. No, Magny is the underdog. There you go. He is the underdog. Brahimaj is the favorite at minus 133 to minus 150. They even favor Brahimaj to get a submission, which is weird to me. Jeremiah Wells versus Mikdebek Oralbai. I don't have much to say. Jeremiah Wells is a big, tough dude. He will go out there. He will be hard to put away. But by God, does he have no way to actually to avoid Oralbai's wrestling. The only way he wins is if he's just too big for Oralbai to wrestle. Because Oralbai is kind of one of those guys who's caught between welterweight and lightweight. He's probably like a 165er if we're being entirely honest. But yeah, he's going to go out there. He's going to fight at the range Oralbai wants to fight at. He's going to be a sloppy striker, and he's going to cling into the clinch, and Oralbai is probably going to take him down a bunch. And I don't want to say that he's going to exceed his his most recent performance against Chris Curtis, which was like 19 takedowns or something insane like that. 19? I'm looking at the UFC stats here. But like, yeah, you're going to get put in the rinse cycle by Oralbai, and that's kind of it. But then again, I guess you could say that Oralbai did lose to Matrush Rambeski, who is really similar to Jeremiah Wells in the sense that he is a bowling ball of a human being who tries to run you over, and that worked. But like, I also think Rambeski is a lot better and a lot more dangerous and a lot more impactful than Wells. Wells has just never struck me as a guy who has much. Like, the athletic tools are there, don't get me wrong. But like every fight he's been in, I've been his fight with Themba Grimbo was shit. His fight with Max Griffin was shit. His fight with Carlston Harris was him getting subbed. Him beating Matthew Semmelsberger was just sad. Him beating Court McGee was sad. Him beating Blood Diamond was horrifying. So you basically have to go back to the Worley Alves fight to get like a good performance out of him, and I'm not trusting that. There's also the age factor. He is 39 years old. And I'm not alone because, again, Oralbai biggest favorite on the card, minus 872 to minus 1430, plus 600 to plus 809. The only thing I'm going to say is that it probably goes the distance because Oralbai is not really that much of a finisher. I know he has a decent finishing rate in the UFC and just overall. But if you look back at his finishes, you need to realize that Jack Hermanson was really washed and should not have been fighting at 170. Not even washed, but the idea of Jack Hermanson fighting at 170 was just terrible. Tafik Musafayev, that one's not bad. That one's aging pretty well. But otherwise, you're getting like Uros Medic, who's a glass cannon. No, thank you. He's gone the distance with Els Brenner. He's gone the distance with Chris Curtis. These are, and Matrush Rambeski, as we said in the losing effort, these are way closer to being Jeremiah Wells than the guys he has finished. Will I be hoping for a finish? Absolutely. Because I don't really need 15 minutes of him Merab Dvalishvili-ing Jeremiah Wells, but it's what I think we're going to have to put up with. So I should be back with an actual recap on this one because I think just the two title fights alone make this, like, demands an actual, like, recap here, as opposed to a hybrid like this one. So, hopefully talk to you on, like, Sunday or Monday for the next episode here. And tomorrow, there will be a stream for possibly Dota And there will be the first episode of my Battletech playthrough. Because I haven't done a Battletech playthrough in a while, and I want to. I feel like I want to, and it's going to be up on YouTube. So check out that in the link tree down below. Have a good day.